Manitou Deuce Remote Installation for VTT Pro X Cartridge. This video covers the installation and adjustment of the Manitou Deuce Remote Suspension Lockout Lever for the VTT Pro X Sealed Damper Cartridge, compatible with the R8 Pro Remote Version fork. Collect these tools and parts, and let's get started. First, we'll assemble the remote compression adjustment knob and associated hardware to the fork. This includes the cable stop, compression knob, knob return spring, knob retainer, and rubber compression knob plug. Secure the bike in a work stand. Open the compression damper by lightly rotating the red compression adjuster. Rotate counterclockwise until the internal hard stop is felt. The knob return spring has a straight leg at the bottom of the coils that points toward the center of the return spring. And it has a hooked leg at the bottom. The Deuce's compression knob has a cross-drilled hole that passes through the center of the knob. The hole is aligned with one of the threaded holes for a cable-retaining set screw. Insert the straight leg of the spring into the cross-drilled hole that aligns with a threaded screw hole. The cable stop has 4 slots on the bottom designed for the hook on the knob return spring. Hold the cable stop so you are looking into the cup and the cable entry port is pointed away from you, or 12 o'clock. Insert the hooked spring leg into the slot at the 6 o'clock position. When assembled correctly, the threaded holes on the compression knob should be roughly oriented at the 6 and 9 o'clock positions. Hold the cable stop steady and rotate the knob clockwise approximately 180 degrees to preload the spring. The threaded holes on the compression knob should now be roughly oriented at the 12 and 3 o'clock positions of the cable stop. Maintain preload on the spring and position it above the compression damper. Orient the cable entry port approximately 45 degrees inboard from the front of the fork. Place the assembly onto the compression knob. You may need to make minor rotational adjustments, but it's important to maintain about 180 degrees of spring preload. After the cable stop and knob are aligned, fully seat the knob. Alternative method for preloading the spring. Seat the cable stop onto the fork. Hold the compression knob slightly above the fork while turning it 180 degrees. Fully seat the knob. The threaded holes on the knob should now be at roughly the 3 and 12 o'clock positions of the cable stop. Use a 5mm hex wrench to thread the knob retainer onto the compression adjuster. Once it is snug, rotate the wrench further clockwise so the compression knob rotates toward the lock position. Gently release the wrench and allow the compression knob to rotate back to the open position. It should return quickly and smoothly. If it returns slowly or stops rotating before reaching the open position, you need to add more spring preload. Add preload by rotating the knob slightly clockwise. Reinstall the retainer and test the knob return again. Repeat until it returns quickly and smoothly back to the open position. To finish, hold the compression knob and tighten the knob retainer to 0.5 to 0.7 Newton meters or 4 to 6 inch-pounds. To install the Deuce Lockout lever, use a 4mm hex wrench to remove the clamp screw from the bar clamp and lever mounting plate. For the standard bar clamp mount, wrap the clamp around the handlebar. Insert the lever mounting plate in the grooved track on the lower clamp. Align the clamp through hole with one of the 3 threaded holes on the lever mounting plate. Partially thread in the screw. Adjust the lever position on the handlebar to the rider's preference. After setting the final position and orientation of the lever, tighten the clamp screw to 4 to 5 Newton meters or 35 to 44 inch-pounds. The Deuce lever can also be mounted directly to integrated brake clamps that have a matchmaker-style interface, like the Hayes Dominion Peacemaker. Install the integrated brake clamp per the manufacturer's instructions. The next step is to route the cable between the lever and the fork. The kit contains a lightweight, shift-style, 0.9 mm diameter inner cable, a lightweight, 3 mm diameter compressionless outer housing, 2 large 6 mm diameter housing end caps, 3 small 4 mm diameter housing end caps, an inline barrel-style cable tension adjuster, and an inner cable end ferrule. The large housing end caps may be pre-installed on the lightweight housing. The Deuce lever is compatible with standard shift cable and housing. Do not use cable housing diameters larger than 4.4 millimeters, such as braided shift cable housings, aluminum link-style shift cable housings, or any style of brake cable housing. Remove an end cap from one end of the housing if they are pre-installed. Trim the exposed end of the housing to create a uniform, straight cut, removing any exposed inner layers. Cut a piece of housing approximately 25 to 50 millimeters or 1 to 2 inches long. Set aside the long length of housing for use later. Reshape the housing into a uniformly round profile and reopen the inner housing liner with a straight round pick. This helps to ensure smooth cable motion. Install small housing end caps on both ends. If using standard shift cable, leave both ends as cut without end caps. On the inline barrel adjuster, one inner barrel will extend out of the adjuster as it is rotated counterclockwise. The other inner barrel will only rotate. Lightly rotate the extending inner barrel back inside of the outer barrel. Do not tighten the inner barrel, as this may hinder the cable tension adjustment process later. Insert one end of the short housing into the non-extending end of the inline barrel adjuster. Insert the other end into the forwardmost housing port on the Deuce lever base plate. Confirm that the extending end of the barrel adjuster is oriented toward the fork. Install a large housing end cap on one end of the long housing. Insert it into the cable stop at the fork and hold it there. Guide the housing up to the open end of the inline barrel adjuster to gauge the housing length. It should be long enough to provide a smooth path for the cable. Sharp transitions or a too short housing may cause poor performance. Cut the housing to the desired length. Reshape the end of the housing and install a small housing end cap. If using standard shift cable, leave the end as cut. Insert the housing into the cable stop and into the open end of the barrel adjuster. Route the non-die-cast end of the inner cable through the forward hole on the lever body and then through the forward base plate port and into the housing. Pull the cable through the housing until the die-cast end of the cable seats fully into the lever body. Remove the two 2mm set screws from the compression knob. Push the lock lever into the full lock position. Check that the lever stop mechanism is properly engaged by pulling on the opposite end of the cable. Pull the cable and wrap it around the groove in the knob. Use a 2mm hex wrench to partially thread the cable retention set screw into the fork compression knob. Do not tighten the screw into contact with the cable yet. The cable should still slide freely within the knob groove. Insert a 5mm hex wrench into the exposed hex on the compression knob. With one hand, pull the cable until it is tight to the knob and maintain tension. With the other hand, rotate the fork compression knob clockwise until the adjuster reaches its hard stop at the locked position. Hold the compression knob here, but do not apply excessive force, as this may damage the damper. Release the cable, but take care to not allow slack back into the housing. Tighten the cable retention set screw against the cable and torque to 0.56 Nm or 5 inch-pounds. Rotate the inline barrel adjuster body to eliminate any remaining cable slack. Now, it's time to check the lockout. Confirm function by cycling the lock lever 3 to 5 times. Checking for smooth pull between open and lock. The lever and knob should quickly return from lock to open. Minor adjustments should be made with the barrel adjuster. For larger adjustments, repeat the cable tension steps. Remove the bike from the workstand. With the Deuce lever set to open, compress the fork with moderate force. Compression should be smooth and light. Push the Deuce lever to lock. Press down on the fork with moderate force, no more than 45 kilograms or about 100 pounds. The fork should have a firm platform when compressed, with little to no change in ride height. If there is excessive leak down or minimal platform force when in lock mode, the compression knob may not be rotating fully to the lock position. Rotate the barrel adjuster to increase cable tension, which pulls the knob closer to lock. If the barrel adjuster reaches maximum adjustment and the knob can still be rotated further clockwise, rotate the barrel adjuster back to its minimum adjustment, loosen the cable retention set screw on the knob, and repeat the cable assembly and tension steps. After ensuring proper function of the lever and fork, trim the excess cable. Leave about 25 mm or 1 inch of cable exposed beyond the fork compression knob. Install the cable ferrule on the cut end of the cable and crimp it in place. Install the second 2mm set screw and insert the rubber plug into the knob retention nut. You have completed the installation process and testing for the Manitou Deuce suspension lockout lever. Additional support and technical resources are also available at hayesbicycle.zendesk.com. Thank you for riding with Manitou.